What's up, Kingdom fans? Welcome back to another episode of All About Kingdom, and today I'm going to talk about what I think were the most aura farming moments in Kingdom. But before we start, I want to make it clear what aura farming is. And so, according to Google, it's that aura farming refers to a sense of cool that is very specific to video games and anime. When I asked my buddies, they all agreed it's basically when a character is giving off so much badass vibes that it leaves everyone and everything around them absolutely speechless. But there's also a panel where the mischievous little rat Ryufi describes what I believe is his own version of it, where he says, "The air is so heavy it's hard to breathe." And so I decided to make my judgments based on all three of these definitions. Also, I wanted to add two rules just to be fair. Number one, no groups. There's only a handful of possibilities for this rule, but in a sense of fairness, I decided to use this. Number two, no memories or flashbacks or dreams for the same reasons as rule number one, and also because we seem to exaggerate a lot of things when we see things like that. And so, without any further delay, here we go. So for this top 10, I had picked 36 moments throughout the whole series, and I had to narrow it down to 10, and it was not easy, and even in the top 10, I think I'm a bit biased on what's better than others, so if you guys have a different opinion, I want to hear it. Now, number 10 is one I am definitely going to catch some hate for. It is at the end of the Shin unit's first day fighting the Gyo-un army. After what we all know was a brutal and bloody first day, Gyo-un comes to face with Kyokai, who is after stopping his trap and is standing amidst a pile of bodies covered in blood, leaving Gyo-un absolutely speechless. Needless to say, this scene is insanely badass, and Kyokai is giving off an intense smell of danger and death despite her being in such an exhausted state. Now, number 9 is one that even to this day makes me upset, and it is the death of the GOAT, Ouki. Even in literally his last moments, the man radiated badass aura, and there's nobody among us who can deny that this scene doesn't deserve to be on this list. Even his last thoughts were badass. His last thoughts being, "I have lived by the sword and contributed to the building of an era. Moreover, to be able to die by the sword is just as I desired. And in my final days, I was even able to meet a trustworthy sprout of the next era. With this, I have no regret left. At last, I go to where my fallen friends await." Kyo is smiling too. And you know what? It's fair to say that he went out the way he wanted. Maybe not at the time he wanted, after he intended to conquer China with his new king. But nonetheless, this is a legendary death. And that will now bring us to number 8, which I struggled to put before number 9, where it is Man-U, the Chu general, standing over Great General Moubu, who he knocked off his horse with little effort. A feat which Kan Mei, the self-proclaimed strongest man in China, couldn't do with all his strength, despite Man-U claiming he is weaker than Kan Mei. This moment only goes on the list because it's left everyone that witnessed it, ourselves included, absolutely speechless. Which brings us to the number 7, where it is the only moment we get to see this character on this list. And if you wanted to guess, you are wrong. Probably. It's Yotanwa, the Mountain King herself. During the beginning of the Western Zhao invasion arc, where she commanded the assault on the gateway to Zhao, known as Retsubi. This is where she showed us the ferocity of the mountain tribes. With just a few simple words, she managed to quell the troops inside Retsubi's cheers by stirring her army's mumbling into the roars of wild beasts, as you can clearly see by these very friendly looking gentlemen at the bottom here. Next up on this list is another heartbreaking moment, number 6, the final words of Duke Hyou. And I feel like this one could be controversial because some may see it as not worthy of being in the top 10, but this is where my bias comes into it. It may not be this panel in particular, but his last moments in general, I believe, is what made him worthy. Even after being surrounded and losing an arm, the Duke kept on fighting and made sure to pass on his fire to the next generation. And that would of course be Shin and his men, so I stand by my choice. And now taking us to the middle of the list, number 5, which is Kanki leisurely ascending up the central hill of Kokoyu. Now I'm surprised it took this long to put the infamous Kanki the Beheader on the list, but it goes without saying, Kanki deserves to be on it at some point. And for those wondering why this scene in particular is on the list, is simply because it's Kanki winning a battle that everybody thought he had no chance of winning, or at least no chance of winning without taking mass casualties. Even Karyo 10 says he pulled off something that Riboku and Shohai-kun, who, in case you can't remember, are basically the head of the military for Zhao and Qin, and she's saying that Kanki pulled off something that neither of them could have done, proving he is a monster, and not just because of his horrible acts, not to mention how he did it was an inevitability he would win. If anything, this was a top contender for the top 3, in my opinion. It's low-key just awesome. And here we are with number 4, another great general moment where Renpa has ascended the hill of Mogu's headquarters on the Sanyo campaign, which in itself is a truly incredible feat considering all the traps that Mogu had prepared for him, but it's how he arrives that puts this moment so high on the list. Him upon his horse, covered in blood, despite the lashing rain, with his glaive in hand and a mad look in his eye, which scares the hell out of anyone near him. And now, friends, here we go with the top 3, which I'm sure people will be divided on, but if you think I'm wrong, well, be sure to say it in the comments and I will gladly defend my choices. And so in third place, we have Shin at death's door during his fight against Hyou Ken, where he is surrounded by all the people who passed their fire and legacy onto him, be it friend or foe. For me, words can't come to mind to describe how incredible this one panel is. It takes my breath away every time, and it makes me want to go back and read the whole story over again so I can understand even better what weight Shin carries on his shoulders. It is my firm belief that this one panel covers all 3 definitions of aura farming, no questions asked. Now, number 2 absolutely had to go to Kanki, which I imagine nobody can argue with. I can't help but compare it with what I said about Dukyu's death and fighting to the last breath, but even in death, Kanki, who also was like Ouki, was radiating aura even after being impaled by a half-dozen spears. He kept charging forward and was mere inches away from finishing Riboku. This scene is unquestionably one of the best in the whole series, and we may not see one even come close to it for a very long time. I mean, the dude outsmarted Riboku's 6 months plan and even got acknowledged by Riboku for being the most dangerous of all the new 6th grade generals of Kin. And before we get to number 1, I want to give some honourable mentions that were just shy making of the list, which I won't go into too much detail. If you know, you know, and if you don't, drop a comment and I'll explain it to you and give you a chapter number so you can read it for yourself. So first on the list is Kisui entering the Battle of Kokuyu Hills. Second, Shin receiving Wuki's glaive before the Western Zhao invasion. Third, Shohai-kun taking the head of Wategi, the Duke of Jiteki, in the state of Eye Arc. And fourth, Wu-sen casually sitting and thinking outside of Gyou while his guards fight around him, cutting up their enemies. It's a really awesome scene. But I don't know if he is aura farming or if it's more Aku who's aura farming. Because without hesitation, he just says, yeah, we'll take on guys twice our number and we'll keep you perfectly safe. Don't worry about a thing. And now the moment we've all been waiting for, the numero uno spot, the most aura in all of Kingdom, goes to the beast from the east, the invincible, the unconquerable Moubu. It's here in the Battle of Bayou, which was very early on in the story, where we first see his true might and utter ferocity, where it so happily says we witness the sight of raw strength surpassing tactics. This panel alone easily covers all 3 definitions of aura, and there are few scenes that are just as badass in the story. There are no scenes just as shocking, and look at the air around them. It is literally covered in blood, and you can see the heat of battle. This panel says everything and more, no questions asked. It is definitely number 1 on the list. I honestly don't think other scene or image can come close to it, but Kanki and Shin were the closest that I could think of. And so, if you've made it this far into the video, I want to say thank you for watching, and how about giving a like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you in the next one.